Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I've been thinking about this storyline quite a bit, and I have to say the more I look at all these clues, the more convinced I become that Drew is heading straight toward a disaster that nobody sees coming until it's too late. One thing General Hospital has always done well is take a character who already has enough problems and then throw them into an even bigger mess. Right now, Drew is vulnerable, emotional, and physically limited, which makes him the perfect target for a shocking summer twist. What really caught my attention was the writer's comment that Drew is going to make a big splash this summer. Now, maybe they meant it figuratively, but after watching soaps for as many years as I have learned that writers love hiding major clues in plain sight. Sometimes the simplest interpretation turns out to be the correct one. That is why I can absolutely picture Drew ending up in the Metro Court pool. The image is almost impossible to ignore once you start connecting the dots. I keep imagining a chaotic moment where everything goes wrong at once. Willow may be distracted by the children or dealing with another family crisis, leaving Drew alone for just a few minutes. In Port Charles, a few minutes is often all it takes for someone's life to change forever. Drew could attempt to move on his own, lose control of his wheelchair, or simply misjudge a movement and tumble into the water before anyone realizes what has happened. What makes this possibility especially frightening is that Drew would not be in a position to save himself. A healthy person might be able to fight their way back to the surface or swim towards safety, but Drew's current physical condition changes everything. Instead of a simple accident, it suddenly becomes a life or death emergency. As I picture that scene, I can almost see the panic spreading across the pool deck while people freeze, unsure of what to do next. And that brings me to Gio. When I heard the teaser that Gio will save someone's life this summer, my ears immediately perked up. Then came the second part of the clue. There are people in Port Charles who wish he wouldn't. Now that is classic General Hospital storytelling right there. It tells me that the person Gio saves is not universally loved. In fact, the victim may be someone who has made plenty of enemies recently. Let's be honest here. Drew has not exactly been winning popularity contests lately. His decisions, his relationships, and the drama surrounding Willow have created a long list of people who are frustrated with him. If Drew were hanging between life and death, there would certainly be characters in Port Charles who might secretly think that his survival would only create more complications. That doesn't mean they would want him dead, but they might not rush to celebrate his rescue either. I can easily imagine Gio spotting the danger before anyone else. As a lifeguard, that would place him in the perfect position to act. Without hesitation, he could dive into the water, pull Drew to safety, and become an unexpected hero. The irony would be fascinating. While Gio is trying to save a life, others might be standing nearby, wondering whether Drew's survival will only bring more heartbreak and conflict into their lives. The thing I find most interesting is what happens after the rescue. In soap operas, the rescue itself is rarely the biggest story. The consequences are, if Gio saves Drew, it could strengthen some relationships while destroying others. It could create new rivalries, expose hidden feelings, and push several characters into making decisions they otherwise would never make. Around Port Charles, one dramatic moment at a swimming pool can send shockwaves through the entire town. As I look at all the clues, I would not be surprised at all if Drew turns out to be the mystery victim Gio rescues. The setup feels too perfect, the timing feels right, and the writers seem to be laying the groundwork for a major turning point. As folks like to say back home, when there's smoke, there's usually fire. Right now, I think there is plenty of smoke surrounding Drew, and I have a feeling the real explosion is still ahead of us. If this theory proves true, the Metro Court pool may become the center of one of the most talked about General Hospital storylines of the summer. I have to tell you, the more I think about these spoilers, the more convinced I become that Drew is heading toward another life-changing disaster. What fascinates me is that all the clues seem to be connecting in a way that feels almost too perfect to ignore. When the writer started hinting that Gio would save someone's life this summer, my first thought was that this couldn't just be some random emergency involving a minor character. This has all the ingredients of a major storyline, and Drew feels like the person sitting right in the middle of it. When I picture the situation, I can almost see it unfolding at the Metro Court pool. Summer's in full swing, people are enjoying the sunshine, and everything appears calm on the surface. Then, in a matter of seconds, everything changes. That's usually how things happen in Port Charles. One moment a character is dealing with ordinary problems, and the next they're fighting for their life. What makes Drew such a likely candidate for this storyline is his current situation. He's already dealing with physical limitations, emotional stress, and a growing list of personal problems. That's exactly the kind of position General Hospital loves to put a character in before pulling the rug out from under them. If Drew were to lose control of his wheelchair, suffer a medical episode, or simply make one wrong move near the pool, the consequences could be devastating. I keep imagining the panic that would spread through the Metro Court if Drew suddenly fell into the water. People would be screaming for help, rushing toward the edge of the pool, and trying to understand what happened. In a situation like that, every second matters. That's why Gio's role as a lifeguard feels so important. He's not just another character standing nearby. He's someone trained to react immediately when disaster strikes. The more I think about it, the easier it is to picture Gio diving into the water without hesitation. He wouldn't stop to ask questions or worry about who was involved. He would simply do his job and save a life. In many ways, that would make him a true hero. Yet the writers have already hinted that there are people in Port Charles who may wish he hadn't stepped in. Now that's where things get really interesting. Let's be honest. Drew has created a lot of tension lately. His relationships have become increasingly complicated, and his connection to Willow has sparked conflict all over town. There are plenty of people who blame Drew for various problems, and some may feel that his presence only brings more drama into their lives. Because of that, I can absolutely imagine certain residents of Port Charles quietly questioning whether Drew's rescue is actually a good thing. Of course, nobody wants to openly admit something like that. But soap operas thrive on complicated emotions. Sometimes characters don't celebrate a rescue because they're secretly worried about what comes next. Drew surviving could mean more arguments, more secrets, more betrayals, and more emotional fallout for everyone connected to him. The answer that keeps coming back to me is Willow. If news spreads that Drew has been seriously injured, it's easy to imagine rumors taking over before the facts become clear. Port Charles has never been a town that waits patiently for the truth. Information travels fast, details get twisted, and assumptions are often made long before anyone knows what really happened. And let's not forget Drew himself. If he survives this ordeal, he may wake up to discover that everyone is arguing about what happened to him. Instead of bringing people together, his rescue could create an entirely new round of conflict. Questions would need answers, rumors would need to be addressed, emotions would be running high on all sides. The thing I find most exciting about this storyline is that it seems to have multiple layers. On the surface, it looks like a simple rescue story. A man falls into danger and a hero saves him. But underneath that is a much deeper story involving suspicion, misunderstandings, damaged relationships, and emotional consequences that could affect several families. That's why I don't think the accident itself will be the biggest part of this storyline. I think the aftermath will be the rescue may only be the spark that ignites a much larger explosion across Port Charles. As I look at all these clues, I keep coming back to the same conclusion. Drew's troubles are far from over. If anything, they may just be beginning. Whether he falls into the pool, becomes the victim of a terrible accident, or finds himself at the center of another misunderstanding, one thing seems certain: danger is heading his way. And if there's one thing I've learned after watching General Hospital all these years, it's that whenever life starts looking difficult for a character like Drew, the writers usually find a way to make it even harder. That's exactly why I believe this upcoming storyline could become one of the biggest and most emotional stories of the summer. Between Gio's potential heroics, Willow's uncertain future, and the confusion surrounding Trina and Kai, it feels like Port Charles is about to be turned upside down once again. Personally, I can't wait to see how it all unfolds.